Good day, class. For today's discussion, we will talk about in detail the concept of intercultural communication. There are three objectives that should be taken for this day. Number one, to be able to identify the aspects and problems in intercultural communication. Number two, to be able to identify the reasons for communication breakdown and to be able to distinguish the communication strategies to avoid communication breakdown. So let's focus on the intercultural communication. What is culture? So for culture, this kind of communication is very important so that the communication between or among group of people, which is the intercultural communication, will become successful and effective. So intercultural communication is communicating with another person or group of people from a background or community who does not share the same belief, traditions, symbolisms, or values. So this seeks to understand how people from different groups communicate, act, or perceive the world around them. So for intercultural communication, this means communication between or among persons or group of people in a particular group. If we say particular group, it may be the neighborhood, the community, the society, the culture, or the ethnicity, organization, school, religion, country, workplace, nation, or state. So culture is the accumulated learned behavior of a group of people. What are those accumulated learned behavior? These are the beliefs, traditions, values, and practices. It refers to anything that is made, learned, and shared by individuals in the society. So anything that is made, learned, and shared by individuals in the society, these are the beliefs, traditions, values, and practices. So these are the basic information that we need to know about culture. So there are different aspects of intercultural communication. First aspect is it is about cultural identity. This refers to the identification with or sense of belonging to a particular or group based on various cultural categories. What are these categories? These are the nationality, ethnicity, race, gender, and religion. If we say nationality, this is about which country a person belongs to. Ethnicity is from which cultural group a person considers him or herself to be a part of. And for the race, this is a group where the physical traits of a person is taken into consideration. What are those physical traits? The color of the hair, the color of the eye, the shape of the face, the size of the body, or the body build, and others. So examples of a race are African American, Asian, European, American, Pacific Islander, and others. So since we are in the Philippines and we are born Philippine or Filipino citizen, Philippines is in Asia. That's why we are called Asian. Okay, for the gender, this is the characteristic of men and women to be masculine and or feminine respectively. So if you're a male, you should be masculine. If you are a female, you should be feminine. So for the gender, this is just an orientation about the gender. If you prefer to be feminine, even if you are a guy, it's okay. If you are female and you prefer to be more on the masculine side, it's okay because gender is just an orientation, a preference on how you want to be or you look like to be. So gender is the characteristic of men and women to be masculine and feminine respectively. And then for the religion, this is being a member of a religious group. Either you are active or inactive in practicing the belief, as long as you perceive yourself to be a part of that religious group, that would be your religion. So that is under cultural identity. Basically, cultural identity is constructed and maintained through the process of sharing collective knowledge on what are those collective knowledge on the traditions, the language, way of dress, food, song, and stories. So each cultural identity or each culture has its own tradition, language used in the group, way of dress. This is the cultural attires, the food, the delicacies or the specialties in a group, the song, which is written in the language used in the culture, and stories. Also with the stories written based on the language used in the culture. So these are the collective knowledge. This is constructed and maintained through the process of sharing collective knowledge. This is the cultural identity. Next aspect is the gender roles, how one is expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct oneself based upon one's assigned sex. So gender is a social construct on the preference of gender, being feminine or masculine. I have said a while ago that if you are a girl and you prefer to be more on the masculine side, it's okay. If you're a male or a boy and you prefer to be more feminine than masculine, it's still okay because gender is a social construct and it is a preference of gender. But gender is different from sex. Sex is the anatomical difference between male and female. If we say anatomical difference, it has something to do with the body parts. If we look at the genitals, what is in the middle of our legs, that would be the basis on the sex. Either you are a male or a female. So if you have this kind of genital, if your genital is for male, you are a male. If your genital is for like for female, you are a female. Even if you want to become a male and male, you cannot become a male because sex is the anatomical difference between male and female. The basis is what's in between the legs. It's not like the gender that you can choose among the gender or between the gender if you want to be feminine or masculine. But for sex, you cannot choose. What's in between the legs, that would become your sex. Either become male or female. Another basis is on the birth certificate. In the birth certificate, if the sex there, yung naka-X doon is female, you're a female. If yung naka-X din doon is male, you are a male. So gender should not be confused to sex. Again, I just want to reiterate that gender is a social construct on the preference of gender. Preference, social construct. It's up to you if you want to be feminine or masculine, regardless of sex. But for sex, it is the anatomical difference between male and female. What's in between the legs, your genital, that would become your identity. Okay. Now, for gender roles, this is about being feminine or masculine. Okay, number 3 or third aspect, the age identity. This refers to not only on one's biological age, but also how one thinks and feel about him or herself as he or she age. So this is influenced on one's image, language use, personality, and communication with others. So it is about how oneself see him or herself in terms of image, language use, personality, attitude, and how he or she communicates with others. So not all children can be matured and not all adults are responsible and matured as well. So we will not focus on the numerical number or numerical value of the person, yung age niya, numerical age. But we will focus on the feeling of how a person thinks about him or herself as he or she age. So what are the factors involved? Again, the influence of one's image, the language used, personality, and communication with others. The fourth aspect is the social status. This is determined and assigned according to income, titles, profession, and etc. So for the income, we can consider here the economic status of a person sa income. So if you have an income na below the minimum, pwede masabi na you are a part of the poor society. Meron ding rich, merong very rich, may royalty, and others. So for the titles, it will depend on the rank or kung anong natapos nyo in life. In the government, merong national and local government. Let's have that for an example. So for the national government, ano yung mga rankings doon? National, have the president, vice president, senators, cabinet members, and others. Yung hanggang sa pinakamababang rank. For the local government, meron sa mga barangays, diba? Merong barangay captain, may kagawad, may secretary, treasurer, may barangay tanod, and whatsoever. So, yun yung kasama na rin sa titles yan. For the profession, kung anong natapos nyo in the educational aspect, like for example, doctor, if you or if someone finished the doctorate degree sa education, tapos kanya doctor pa rin, di ba? Doctor of philosophy. Meron din namang doctor sa field ng medicine, yung medical doctor, may physician, may mga neurologist, merong mga nasa side pa rin ng dentistry, meron din pharmacist, mga ganun. So, side ng mga nasa medical field yung mga yun. So, professional or professions and others. So, that is about the work or job of a person. So, that means the social status will be more on the perception of a person's status affects how the people around him or her communicate. So, not all people have the same way of communicating with others. So, magkakaiba yan, depending on the income, the titles, the profession, and perception about the status, and etc. Fifth aspect is the religion or religious identity. When someone sees themselves as a member of a religious group or active in practicing their belief. So, here, even if you are not active or you are very active in practicing your belief in your religion, you can consider yourself as part of that religion, or that would be your religious identity, as long as you perceive yourself as that you belong to that kind of religion or religious identity. Okay. These are the aspects of intercultural communication that need to become aware of to avoid miscommunication. So in order to avoid the intercultural miscommunication, an individual must identify the problems in intercultural communication. Here are the common intercultural communication problem. Number one is ethnocentrism. From the prefix ethno meaning nation, center meaning general. So ethnocentrism is the conscious or unconscious worldview of other cultures according to preconceptions originating in the standards and customs of one's own culture. Meaning a group is superior than the other group. The perception of the specific group is more superior than the other group. This is ethnocentrism. It is a mindset or a point of view in which an individual judges the other's culture or ethnic group based on the rules and values of his or her own ethnic group. So, meaning the particular culture is superior than others, and the culture or the group perceive the group as the center of everything. So, meaning siya ng pinakamataas. Siya na yung righteous, siya na may good moral, siya na din yung may better or best standards among all the groups in the society or in the country or in the state or nation. That is an ethnocentrism. So there is a comparison between a group to another group, a nation to another nation, state to another state, or country to another country, and others. So this is the attitude of one's own group, ethnicity, or nationality that is superior to others. So this is ethnocentrism. Next is about egocentrism. This is the mindset in which one considers himself or herself to be the center of everything. Ethnocentrism, it is about the group. But for egocentrism, this is about an individual. The mindset in which he or she considers him or herself to be the center of everything. Siya na yung laging tama, siya na yung may pinakamataas na moral standards, siya na yung center of everything, ika nga, and others. So, what are the things that we can consider to identify a person to be an egocentric person? The first is self-righteousness. This is the belief of having higher or better moral standards than other people. Sabi niya, siya yung always right. Kaya nga self-righteous. Siya na may better moral and higher standards than the other people. Second is hypocrisy, is the act of claiming to have certain moral standards and beliefs while displaying behaviors and actions that prove otherwise. So claiming that he or she has full of morality, but his or her action does the opposite. That is hypocrisy. And the third one, a saving face, trying to save one's reputation after making a mistake or trying to prevent others from noticing that a mistake has been made. So the person is not admitting the mistake and he or she points out or at someone to be blamed. These are the characteristics, the traits, or descriptions of a person that we can say that the person is an egocentric person. Number 3, or third problem in intercultural communication, the sociocentrism. It is a mindset or a point of view in which an individual judges the rest of the world based on the rules and the values of his or her own social group. So this is about a social group in the society. The person is judging the other social groups. Sinasabi niya yung social group niya, yun yung pinaka-superior, center of everything, may self-righteousness, merong higher and better moral standards than the other groups. This is sociocentrism. Next is prejudice and stereotype. Prejudice is an opinion about others that is not based on critical thinking. This is usually negative opinions that cause to discriminate. Actually, prejudice and stereotype is the same with regards to discrimination. So prejudice is discrimination against a person, but for stereotyping, this is a discrimination against a person and against his or her group where he or she belongs to. So prejudice is an opinion about others that is not based on critical thinking. That's why the person usually give negative opinions about the person that causes him or her to discriminate the person being judged. Okay, that is prejudice. Stereotyping is a generalized description given to members of a particular group. It is not about merely on an individual, rather given this description is given to members of a particular group. Parang na-judge na yung isang tao damay kung saan group siya belong. That is stereotyping. So these are the 4 problems in intercultural communication. So how will we lessen these kinds of problems? So here are the strategies in avoiding problems on intercultural miscommunication. First, delay attributing meaning. So you need to avoid interpreting nonverbal signals made by a person from another culture until you have read something about their culture and you have studied matters about their culture. So don't give conclusions, don't give negative judgment, don't give negative opinions about a person as long as you don't know him or her fully. You cannot give any negative things about him or her, lalo kung wala kang alam about the person. That's why you need to delay attributing meaning. Okay, number 2, develop awareness of your non-verbal communication. Be mindful of how you use your facial expression, body language, hand gestures, and voice when communicating. So in the communication process, you need to be aware of your non-verbal communication. What you are saying using verbal communications, it should be in line with the non-verbal communication that you are applying or you are making. Kasi ang mangyayari niyan if the verbal and non-verbal communication is not the same or they are not in line with each other, magkakaroon ng confusion with regards to your message. So be mindful of how you use your non-verbal communication. And third, check whether non-verbal messages correspond to verbal messages. This is related to number 2. So be very observant and persistent on listening when you communicate with other people. Pay attention on how the person speaks or reacts to get clues. You don't need to focus on the verbal messages only. Rather, you need to focus on the verbal and the non-verbal messages to get the appropriate, correct, and proper messages being conveyed. So be very observant on the use of the verbal and non-verbal messages. So these are the things that we need to apply in life so that we avoid or we can avoid the intercultural miscommunication. Thank you for listening. Thank you for attending. And thank you for joining our virtual class. See you again next week for another lesson. Thank you and goodbye.